I did do skating back. I mean, I think my stint lasted for the entirety of my sixth grade year.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
one solid drop in on a half pipe and just like face planting, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna continue playing football. I'm gonna save all my energy for that because man, hitting your face into the ground.
Oh,
I was like,
brutal.
there's no face cage to save me.
Yeah, dude, not at all. That sucks, man. Shit.
Oh, let me just grab some water real fast.
Yeah.
And before we get going, I wanna go ahead and I'll do it on the show as well. But I want to commend you for the production quality of your show. It really puts mine to shame, by a long shot. But I actually wanted to ask, what do you use for getting your guys' audio, because it's always so crisp.
So, I mean, I'm an audio engineer, and I've been doing it like 12 years.
Okay.
So we're both recording on SM7Bs, which is actually kind of recent. Pat was on like a 58, but it's really more about like getting the room to sound good, which I've put like a ton of money into my room because I like produce podcasts for a living and do music and stuff. But really, it's just like getting as good of a recording as possible, and it's like a lot of like iterations, and then we both record ourselves locally. So like I record in Pro Tools, Pat records in GarageBand. He Dropboxes it to me, and then I like mix everything on my end with like a ton of different stuff that I've collected over, a decade plus. So it's a lot of just, I mean, it's like my passion is audio. So like the podcast is fun, but then I get to like spend hours just trying to get the audio honed as perfectly as possible.
I know I've seen the Twitter posts before.
Yeah.
You got the triple screens going on. You're like, and I made it perfect.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. Since I've got like I bought one of those like huge 49-inch monitors that's like as wide as my arm, so there's just like all the windows open, and I feel like I'm in like a weird spaceship command center, but it was a business expense, so I bought it.
Oh, dude, I just started a business myself, and like learning that everything is a business expense. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, dude, my haircuts, because like I film, so I write all of that off, dude. I heard Trump wrote off $750,000 of haircuts, and I was like, all right, no one's gonna question my like $300 of haircuts.
Oh, I didn't think about that, but I started a home services business, and I got to look presentable in people's houses.
Absolutely,
I got to do it. So yeah, okay.
Write it off.
Add that to my list of things to write off.
I haven't like checked with a lawyer or anything, but I'm going with it. So this is not business advice. But,
I mean, I got a CPA that I just give everything to him. Like, you make it work.
Nice. Yeah, that's the way to go.
But all right, let me get one more sip of water, and then I'll go ahead and do a little introduction, and then we'll go ahead and jump into it.
Cool.
So I had a late night last night, and
yeah,
it was, man, there was nobody wanting to drive on those icy roads, but I did.
Dude, you got to make it while you can.
Yep.
It's always helpful to be the only one out there doing something.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, everybody, welcome back once again to This Just In, the show that sounds like a news show, but isn't a news show. It's just me talking to people that I find fun and interesting. And this week, I got a really fun one. I've been listening to his podcast for a little while now, probably a few months, maybe 3 months.
Nice.
But we have Tom Kelly of the Reminiscent Podcast. Real quick, Tom, give everybody a quick rundown of what Reminiscent is, who it's targeted for, and just boast about yourself.
That's hard for me to do, man. I grew up Irish Catholic, so I'd be a sinner. So, yeah, man. I mean, it's me and my best friend since 8th grade talking about the bands, the songs, the music videos that we loved in high school. And really the song or the podcast itself it's kind of like our personal diaries through the lens of our favorite songs. Pat and I were in a band together all through high school. We still are making music together long distance, like through Dropbox and stuff today. kind of like a modern postal service, but way worse. Yeah, man, I mean, there's so much of our lives were wrapped into bands like Taking Back Sunday and Blink, Green Day, Motion City Soundtrack and stuff. So we're really just kind of parsing through the insanity of those 4 years together in high school and, what was happening when we were listening to these songs, who introduced us to them. It's just our relationship with the music and how it's changed over time. And it's not like a music history podcast. I mean, we're not historians, and we kind of knew that like Rolling Stone can come in and just do that podcast way better. They can outspend and out-resource us. We're not really like, we don't break down the songs like Rick Beato, who's talking about Blink and how, yeah, it's a major chord, but they put the dominant seventh over it, so there's like a little bit of melancholy. Like, I took some music theory in high school, but that's not the show at all. Like, the one thing we can do, since we're not really professionals, the one thing we can do better than anyone, or the only thing we can do that someone else can't do, is have our memories and our experiences. So we're kind of just talking about our personal relationships with this music. It's mostly emo and pop punk. We kind of limit ourselves to the years 2000 to 2010 just to make it a little more difficult, a little more interesting, but those are also the years that Pat and I were like together nonstop. So that's kind of like the heart of the show. It's the heart of our relationship.
Yeah.
And it's been cool to see how, like, of all of our listeners, everyone kind of lived the same weird emo life. Like, everyone has the same
I was gonna say that.
as
like,
us.
it's almost like a form of like, back then it was like a form of massive hypnosis coming through the music that like kind of led to everybody kind of having the same experiences, but just all over the place.
Yeah.
Because I was growing up in, small town Arizona, and I was having the same experiences that you guys were having in Erie, PA.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like, it's just crazy how that works.
Oh, and when you're like just a little narcissistic 16-year-old, it's like, this is only happening to me. And, Taking Back Sunday wrote this song just for me. And,
that's a theme that you bring up a bunch on the show is like you have this mentality of, oh man, they wrote this for me. Like, this is totally my life.
Yeah. But then you find out it's everyone else's lives and they were all exactly the same. And you mean nothing in the universe. So it's kind of like a weird like group therapy session. But I mean, the show's been a lot of fun to kind of. It's always interesting when Pat and I spent so much time together, and we have so many of the same experiences, and obviously we each experience them from a different perspective. So it's really interesting to go back and just relive some of those moments and gain another perspective of understanding on it. So it does kind of turn into like therapy sessions sometimes, like for real. And it's honestly been really great. It was never meant to last this long, but people liked it, so we just keep doing it, and we're having a lot of fun.
It's good that you do. Like, it's a great show. Your guys' chemistry, I mean, you can tell that you guys have known each other most of your lives. Like, it comes across right away. And I gotta say, like, I'm so jealous that you seem to have this like great relationship with a good friend from high school that you got to share all these with, and you have like these great music Sherpas that you always talk about.
Oh
and I like look back, I'm like, man, my music Sherpa was a dick, and I don't even talk to him anymore.
That's a bummer. Yeah, I mean, this show would not exist without a bunch of people like holding our hands along the way. We call them our music Sherpas, which I think Pat was the one who coined that. It's like these people that literally carried us up a mountain to better music. So like, I had my introduction to pop punk when Addicted by Simple Plan dropped on the radio. And like, that was my gateway into, or I guess like out of, Lil Jon and the East Side Boys, or like Tupac and DMX, which like I really enjoyed at the time. But something just like totally clicked. Like, this is my music. But there was no one, I didn't have any friends that listened to it. So I got kicked out of Catholic school in 7th grade for having hair that touched the back of my collar. So they couldn't have a sinner in their school. When
shame.
My friends were like getting hand jobs in the bathroom and stuff, but I had long hair. So, God forbid.
That's the problem.
So I got kicked out, or politely asked to not come back. And I went to public school in 8th grade. And I was really lucky to meet Pat. Actually, I met him a couple years before because my stepbrother went to the school, but we never like hung out or anything. So I met him. He introduced me to a bunch of people who had older brothers that were in the music scene. So they were introducing us to like Big D and the Kids Table and Less Than Jake and Rancid. We got introduced to the Starting Line, AFI, Alexis on Fire, A Static Lullaby. Just like what would be my taste in music for the rest of my life.
Real fast, I got to put a pause real quick.
Yeah.
You broke my brain when you started referencing Alex is on fire as Alexis on fire. The whole time, my entire life, I thought it was Alex is on fire. And then you said it during one of the shows. I'm like, man, this guy doesn't even care about this music. He's saying names wrong. And I looked up. I was like, oh shit, man!
For I am the fool.
World.
Yeah, I mean that was a weird one. There was this guy Jay who always wore their T-shirts. Or no, it wasn't Jay. It was his friend. I forget his name. Alex. There you go. And I remember like whispering to Jay like, is it Alex is on fire or Alex? And there was no Google, so you like had to embarrass yourself by like asking someone cooler than you, which is just like a recipe for.
It's a sign saying I'm not cool.
Yeah, and I was like, I was the new kid. I went to that school for one single year. I couldn't like make an impression like that, but I had to, and I'm glad I knew.
Oh man. That's good stuff. But seriously, I can't sing the praises of the show enough. Tom and Pat are great. I do think that Pat is kind of my spirit animal because he brings in the references like the Scrubs references. He'll bring in droves, and I'm a huge Scrubs fan.
Hell yeah.
He also what was it that he brought up? I have it written down. I got my notes off camera, and I can't remember the other thing that I wanted to talk about Pat. But Pat is also great. It's a great show. It's such a fun, like, I mean, it's literally, you're literally reminiscing with people that you don't know, but you feel like you know.
Yeah.
Really within like an episode. Like you just kind of like you guys really come across the speakers, so to speak, just so genuine, so real. And, you know, like having a conversation with you would be no different than listening to the podcast. And I'm literally proving that right now.
Well, I'm glad you think so, man. Yeah, it's literally just us talking. Like when we're not recording, that's more or less how we have conversations. Like it's been interesting how the microphone kind of fades away and we're just having a conversation while we're doing it. I mean, it's been over 5 years at this point, so it definitely didn't start like that. But I'm glad
I think I've heard you say a couple of times that like episodes 1 through like 99, just ignore.
Yeah, you totally can. I mean, the show wasn't even about music then. Like it was literally me just testing the audio. And we were going to do like 10 episodes. But then like I just moved across the country. He just moved across the country. And we were just trying to like talk more. And I was starting a podcast production business. So it was like basically a test 1, 2, but we liked it. And then the episodes that did well were focused on music. So we just decided like either we stopped doing it because there's only 10 people listening, or we tried to do it right. So we rebranded, focused on music. And it's the same show that it was before, where it was just 2 white guys rambling about nothing. But now it's like 2 white guys rambling about music. So that's where we are. And again, we couldn't do anything professionally well. Like we're not going to research. We'll read a paragraph on Wikipedia and call it research. But, it's just us talking. So
yeah. And I remember the other reference that I like that Pat drops pretty regularly. Like I think I've heard him drop it like 3 times, and he talks about the hustler kid from Recess. and the reason that I like that so much is because I was the hustler kid when it came to music at my school. Yeah? Like I was the guy who would like tie up his phone lines all the time because it wasn't dial up, but it was DSL, so it still had like an aspect of going through the phone lines and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it was super slow, but I would literally have computers running all the time, hitting up that LimeWire, Kazaa, whatever.
Winamax,
yeah, like everything like that. Like I would have every single song, every single album. Every time like a friend got a new album, I'd be like, okay, I'm borrowing that before you even listen to it. I'm ripping it and I'm gonna make these awesome mixes. And like that was my thing. Like that I was
Nice.
music hustler kid.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I needed someone like that in my life because I'm like pretty lazy for the most part. Like I'm not actually it's kind of changed in the past few months, but I'm not the kind of person to like go out and seek music. I'm not like on Spotify's new today playlist or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always been like everything that I love, someone has presented it to me, and I'm extremely lucky and extremely grateful to have had those people in my life. And now those people are the listeners of the podcast, and it's like this really insane like circle of life thing going on, and it makes the whole thing super fun, super rewarding. That kind of like sphere of influence of the people, like we're putting out these episodes and people are like giving us so much back that it's been amazing. And there's like a lot of like some of my new favorite bands have come from people that listen to the show, and I'm just super grateful for that.
Yeah, and like you guys are keeping up with like the music as it evolves, which is another cool thing because you guys do like a little like song of the week at the end of every episode.
Yeah.
And after I had started listening to you, you guys would like mention bands that I had like just gotten turned on to. I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are great. Like Hot Mulligan is one where I was like, oh, I just started listening to them. They're so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, you want to talk about like Pat brings up SEO a bunch in your guys' show. I don't know if he works in SEO. I just left a job in SEO myself a few months ago.
Yeah.
But the SEO that Hot Mulligan did when it came to their song featuring Mark Hoppus, I listened to that song 3 times, and I was like, I don't hear Mark Hoppus in there anywhere.
Dude, that was the best. Like, that's the coolest gimmick anyone has ever done, but the song rules. Like, that's what makes it even better.
Like it literally, like it's so my favorite thing to do, because like I said earlier, I'm an Uber driver right now, / business owner that I'm getting lifted off the ground. But like, getting these like cool new music and being able to like have like total strangers hear it is really fun for me, because nobody gets to control what kind of music's in my car other than me.
So you're one of those Uber drivers. You're getting what you get. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're getting what you get, and you know what? 90% of the time, I think you're gonna like it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's you get to kind of. I like to gauge people. I mean, granted, I don't do it every time where I kind of change the song, the playlist depending on who's getting in the car. But every now and then, I'll do a cursory glance and go, okay, this person, they're gonna enjoy Hot Mulligan. This person, they're gonna enjoy Camp. I think Pat brought up Camp a couple weeks or a month ago or so.
Big fan. So you're a big playlist guy then.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be. I used to be like really big into it, and I used to make like these huge playlists. And now, thank goodness, the internet is a thing, and everybody makes these playlists basically for you.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of just click on a playlist now.
Yeah. That's something that, like, speaking of SEO, we're kind of experimenting with more. I don't know, man. Like, I've always been intrigued by the idea of a playlist, but again, I'm lazy. Like, I'm not gonna make it. But over the past few months, I feel like my YouTube algorithm has like really got me figured out, and it's just like serving me the best music ever. So like, I'm just taking the algorithm, making a playlist, and our podcast has like an Apple Music and a Spotify account. So we're like making playlists and trying to like pepper in a couple things about the show and see what happens. But it's been interesting to become more of a playlist person. That was never me. Like, if I'm going to listen to music, I know what I want to listen to. I'm listening to an album from start to finish, and I know what I want. So like, I'm going to just do that,
And you know what? I was very similar to that back in I mean, I still technically am. Like, as soon as I hear a song from somebody that I like, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to listen to that whole album.
Right.
And I have a weird tick in my head that if the whole album doesn't kind of cohese, I kind of let it go.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
That actually brings up one thing that I'm super excited to talk to you about. Even if it kills me, by Motion City Soundtrack, I will go on record saying I think it's their best album. It's their most rounded album. Yeah. The opener and the closer of this album. Awesome opener, fantastic closer, and then you have the penultimate song, Antonia, which is what I think is probably the most beautiful love song to ever be written.
No, I super agree. I mean, I listened to the whole thing throughout the week. It's an album I've been listening to. Gosh, I mean, I went like a few years without listening to it recently, which is a tragedy. But it somehow this album leaves me so surprised every time I listen to it by the way the entire thing flows. I mean, it is so cohesive. Even when it doesn't feel like it for like a moment, there's something that brings it back in to like the heart of what this entire record is. And it's just I think it's one of the best albums of the decade of the genre. It's in my top 10 for sure, even though I went like maybe 5 years without listening to it because there's like some pretty intense memories tied to it, specifically the person who introduced me to the album. So it's hard to separate the personal feelings from just enjoying the music. But
and then to capital, I'm gonna go ahead and take a guess that it might have been like a previous female companion of sorts. And there's so many like heart-wrenching songs on this album. Last Night, which is there a better breakup song than Last Night? Like, I feel like I'm being really hyperbolic in the way that I'm like praising this album, but you got Last Night, you got Broken Heart.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this broken heart and fuck it up so it'll never work again. Not for me, just for anyone. Like,
Woof.
Like, Hello Helicopter, which to this day I still don't really know what it's about. But God, if I go a year or so without listening to that song and I listen to it, if I'm in the right, or should I say wrong headspace, I'll just start weeping openly.
Yeah. Oh, it'll
change. I don't know
week.
why.
Yeah. No, and that's what I mean, I don't know if you want to go like track by track. I'm totally prepared for that, but
I got the track list pulled up, and we can do that if you want to.
Yeah, I'm down for it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go ahead and, if we're gonna do that, let's go ahead and start at the top. Fell in Love Without You. Man, it just comes in. It's got I don't know the official term, but like it's like a radio sound at the beginning where it's like that frequency coming in and just the synth hitting and then just
you know what it is? It's an orchestra tuning note.
That's what it is.
So like the whole orchestra is getting tuned. It's like we're kind of just getting into this thing. I think it's usually an A that they're tuning at, and I've never really noticed that it was the tuning note because I've always like wanted to put out an EP and start it with that. Now I can't because I realized because it's like a little bit of like the violins tuning and then the feedback comes in and and it's just like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, I don't know if you swear on the show.
No. Okay. Fuck, shit, piss, say whatever you want.
Tis fart turd,
whatever you want to say.
Yeah, dude. So like, it is honestly like within the first 10 seconds, the entire thesis statement for the album is set before a single word is said. It starts off like really pretty, like we're gonna go into this nice like melodic piece, feedback, then the synth is going nuts, and it's like there's all these counter melodies going on, and you like don't quite know where you are, but you're also like not too eager to leave. And I feel like that's just the entire album, like on a micro and a macro level, and they set it up so well. I love it. It's
the alliteration on this album is amazing. Every open wound will cauterize and bruise.
It's nuts. No, JCP is people, thinking of Pat talk about Max Bemis a lot, and I don't disagree, but I think Justin Courtney Pierre is one of the best lyricists of a generation, should I say. It's nuts. The alliteration, the rhyming, even things that like don't quite rhyme, but he makes work somehow. It's insanity. I can't believe the things they pulled off in this record.
Yeah, it really is good, and shout out to Pat and Max Bemis. You guys really, I put it on Twitter the other day. You guys really did reopen my eyes to how great Say Anything was, and the fact that I never realized that the song Alive with the Glory of Love. I had no idea it was the story about 1940s Germany or France, right?
Yeah.
France. Was it France?
I forget.
I can't remember, but it just, as soon as you guys said it, it was just like one of those things where I was like, Oh, damn. It's right there. It literally says Axis.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I danced to that song with my wife at my wedding, and it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a love song. But then, we do like the music videos on the podcast, and we're kind of like, this is kind of a dark video. And then you read the lyrics, and it's like hiding in plain sight. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Like this is intense.
which it really does go to speak to Max's skill as a songwriter, because yeah, to have multiple levels to a song is a very, very hard dance to do.
Yeah. It's so easy to be corny or too forced, and then also you have to fit it into like so few words with a rhyme scheme to it. I don't know how anyone even does it. I mean,
right.
I used to sing in a band and I wrote the lyrics, and it was not that kind of
It was
stuff.
not like that. I tried my hand at writing lyrics probably for a total of like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I am not good at this.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
I'm just going to go to freeform poetry.
Yeah. No one cares what's happening there as long as you say it in a funny way. But yeah, so like Fell in Love Without You, it's not my favorite song on the record, but I think it is the perfect opening song. Like it's it reminds me a bit of the opening of Commit This to Memory. Gosh, it's escaping me now. It's just like so chaotic and it's all over the place, but it does it with grace at the same time.
Today.
Huh?
Attractive Today.
Yeah, dude, that song is like nuts, man.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on, and I don't know, it like sets you on edge a little bit, but it's comforting at the same time. I don't know, man. Music is so hard to talk about, and a band as good as MCS, they don't make it any easier just because it's so approachable but challenging, and it's great. It's great pop music. I love it.
Yeah, it really is a song. Like most of their songs are songs that like pretty much anybody can at least bop their head to.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, 100%. Like you don't have to understand what's going on. It's fun music to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, and a perfect example of that is the next song. This Is For Real.
Yeah,
just like that. Oh, I thought I knew what love was, and love is something totally different.
Yeah.
Which, as you get older, you realize that that's totally a thing. Like what I thought was love when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, and even in high school and everything, it was infatuation.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a real emotion. But the love that I have for my wife of literally, I'm hitting 10 years this year.
Nice, congrats.
It doesn't even compare to anything before it. And that's kind of what this song means to me. And so I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so this album and this band, like many others that I either love or hate, depending on my mood at the time, was introduced to me by an ex. Her name is Hannah. I talk about her on the show a lot. She's like one of my main music Sherpas. And it was like I was just coming off of this super weird 5-year relationship with this girl I dated from 12 to 17, and she was like super religious, so like we were like planning our wedding at 13 because if you held hands you had to marry that person. And it was like it was so restrictive, and I just felt so like oppressed during that time. I mean, I'm not a victim because I could have left at any time, but I was 13 and didn't know how to break up with someone, so I figured I'd just marry them. And then we finally got it over, and then a few months later I dated Hannah, and it was like there was this sense of freedom,
Yeah.
And it was like I like fell in love so fast. But yeah, now being married for coming up on 4 years, we've been together for 10. What love actually is so different, but like those 17-year-old emotions are so intense.
Oh yeah.
And the song This Is For Real. So like this is a song where I think about her, and weirdly enough, I think about Pat as well. So like,
you know what? I have the same thing. I think about him every time I hear that song as well.
So like, Pat and I were really good friends. And then we had like this study hall with Hannah and one of her friends, and we were like both kind of crushing at the same time. So like Hannah was introducing all of us to this music, and this song came on, and it was like everyone's in love with everyone kind of thing, or that's what it felt like. So
I was always that third friend where you
Oh,
had the
no.
two friends with the other two friends, and then there was me. I was like, I fucking hate you guys.
But like, so the opening line, I've got emotion dripping out my pores and I thought I should let you know. Like, welcome to the genre. Welcome to being 17. Welcome to like just emo music in general. And I love how, I don't know, like emo music, I mean, not to say this is emo, but when they like pour their heart out, sometimes it's like, ugh, okay, like, but he's just like saying it and it feels so natural. And he's just like, whatever, this is me, take it or leave it. And
I want to point out that he's not like, I don't want this to sound wrong, but he's not crying about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he's saying, I've got emotions dripping out of my pores, and I think you should know. Like, yeah. And it's not like that's one thing that kind of did get to me is like there was a lot of whininess in that time frame.
Yeah,
and that's something that I can't really hold on to these days.
For sure.
Yeah. Like no offense, but when it comes to, I know you guys still tote the Simple Plan line, but every time I hear a Simple Plan song now, I literally have to skip it because it's so, as much as I hate the word, cringe inducing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There was an interview with Pierre, the singer of Simple Plan, and he even says the same thing. The recording of their first album was like pretty tumultuous, and the producer was like, whinier, whinier, whinier. That's what the kids want. But like, if I heard their music, if I listened to it for the first time, I wouldn't dig it. But like, to me, it's so nostalgic. So like, it gets a huge pass, but like, I don't necessarily disagree that it's like some of the whiniest stuff I've ever heard, but like, yeah, I'm eating it up, man.
Every now and then, I'm not gonna lie, I'll let it play. Every now and then, like, like you said earlier, was the one you brought up, "Addicted"? Was it "Addicted" that you brought up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first song to say "dick."
Yeah, and you would scream it as loud as you could because you could.
Like no, you're not listening to what I'm saying, Teach. Right. I'm saying a dick. Ted to you.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean it's interesting when you find an artist like I'm wearing a Story So Far hoodie. Like I think of them when it comes to angst without the whininess, and maybe, I mean, he's a whiny motherfucker as well, but his voice isn't like whiny. It's like more yelly and whatever, and somehow it like helps it get a pass. I don't think lyrically JCP is whiny about it, and his voice, I mean, especially on this song, his voice is so tight. It's just the best. Like song 2, you're like, oh, this is the album for me. Like this is mine alone. Yeah. It's great. Like the 2-hit choruses, I was always a huge fan of those. Our high school band was always trying to do a song that was just da-da, da-da, because that was so ubiquitous at the time, and everyone was trying to do it. It was really hard to pull off, and they just, like everything else, they just nailed it.
Yeah, this is for real great one. Then third, we got "It Had to Be You." Another great like love song.
Yeah, and it's hard to find a love song as sincere as this one. I feel like I really love the hyper specifics of the lyrics, like searching for a perfect blend of steak knife and nonstick frying pan. It's just like, I can see that QVC or whatever, presentation, and I'm sitting there watching it because I'm fixated on these pans. Like, love songs are so hard because I feel like it's hard to go specific. So then you go over general, then it's just like dumb, And I really applaud them for going so deep into the specifics where you'd think like no one's going to get this song because this is such a unique experience, but that's like, I feel like it's just like a window into his heart, and like you can like see directly through his eyes of what he sees, and it makes me relate to it so much more because of the specifics. Even though I've never experienced it, you just get it. Like, yeah, you just get it. I think like that's one of my favorite lines in the whole album, and I love the fact that the steak knife concept or whatever comes back later, which is even so fun. Like, he's so good at writing love songs.
They do a steak knife callback?
He talks about Ginsu knives in
that's right.
Antonia.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a QVC thing. I think they cut through the shoe, which is what the It's Always Sunny like
cut through the shoe. They'd always do like a can, how it goes through the can so effortlessly.
And I mean, I don't know, man. Like, having a callback about a cheap Chinese steak knife or whatever, sick. Like, who does that? And who can pull it off? It's great.
And it really is like it's kind of a love song that speaks a little bit to me, because I mean, me and my wife, I should say she knew me longer than I knew her, because I had a bit of what some people would say a drinking problem when we first met. And so she would always meet me like when I was totally just gone. Uh-huh. And, so we knew each other, but didn't know each other. And then, it's kind of like one of those things where like we met one night and I was like, hey, what if it was you? And so like, that kind of like resonates with me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, I feel like it's so hard to talk about this album because it doesn't make sense how well they pulled off every moment of this. There's nothing that feels overdone or underdone. Like, it is just so perfectly cured. Yeah. I'm like, I'm talking a lot, but I'm pretty speechless about how good this record is.
We're saying a lot of words, but nothing is really being said. But it's hard because like this song, not the song, but this album as a whole, like you said, it almost says everything that you need to say about it. Like I would have hated to have worked for Alternative Press or one of those institutions when this album came out, because what do you write that isn't written on the page right there for you to see?
Yeah,
and here, like
I like anything you could say could only detract from how great it is. Like, you've got to let the album speak for itself is kind of how I feel. But
but we're not going to do that. We're gonna keep talking about it. Which brings us to Last Night.
Yeah.
Which man,
the hype train comes to a screeching halt. Yeah. So for me, the way I relate to this song is, again, Hannah introduced it to me, and it was like young love, and it was great, but she was a year older than me. So we were dating when she was a senior in high school, I was a junior, and then she went off to college in a different state. And Erie, Pennsylvania, the town where we grew up, it's like, 90,000 people, a pretty like depressed, like on the borders of like former steel towns. They did like paper production, and then all of that collapsed, and it's like it's rebuilding now thanks to some of the people that I kind of came up with who are reinvigorating its art scene and stuff. But like, it's a pretty small town with, at the time, pretty small ideas. So like, someone leaves and they go to college and they're taking philosophy classes, and they're just like, it doesn't take a lot to be on a different level, So like, the line, I can't compete with all your damn ideas, this is goodbye, this is the end. Like, when we broke up, it was because like my mind stayed so small staying in Erie, and she went out and was like, quote unquote, experiencing the world, and I didn't know how to relate to her anymore. So like, this song just crushes me, dude. It's brutal.
It is brutal, and it just, again, like, I don't know how many times I'll say alliteration when I talk about this album, but this one it's so hard to talk about. It really is, because we like everybody, not everybody, but I think 90% of the world has gone through this.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Like, this line really hits, even though I didn't have this exact same thing happen. But her cat was clawing the floorboards just outside of our door. The panic begins.
God, man, why you gotta do that?
Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that feeling of,
this
is the end. Holy shit, I am freaking out. And I mean, you guys mentioned this line, but I searched the whole damn apartment from ceiling to carpet. Man, it's just
Yeah.
I love that line.
Who does this? It's brutal. I'm just like looking up the lyrics now. I mean, yeah, no time for half-hearted goodbyes. I turn on the spotlight and flee from the scene. It even just like, I love this cheap flights from Paris to Bangkok. I thought it was nonstop. Like, that is such superfluous information, but it's just like, I want to hear more about this flight, dude. Like, you thought, I don't know, man. Like, I've never heard, it's almost like this weird carefree nature of like, hey man, I'll get to the point eventually, but for right now, we're going to talk about this flight, you know? Like, I feel like everything about the album, like, it never gives it to you all at once. It never gives you everything you're hoping for at the time, but it always delivers. Like, it always gets to the point, never as quickly as you're hoping for, but the things they include in the meantime add so much to it. Yeah. And even like, you know, the song is so intense, but then the way it ends with like that bouncy little doot like bass line, and just like this big hit out, like, it's, I don't know, they're really good at playing with emotions, where like that sounds so much more lighthearted and upbeat than everything he's singing about, that it's kind of like, okay, this isn't the end of the story. Like, there's always more. No matter what, there's always more. And I love the way they play with that in the theme of the lyrics, the music. I mean, macro entire sections of the music are like specific notes that they hit. You're just like, there's so many layers to this. It's really captivating on the 100th listen, because it takes that many to like really parse through everything they're going with here.
Yeah. It's just one of those that you do feel it. Like, you feel that song.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's gut-wrenching, man. Like, it's just really intense. I don't know how they do it. I don't know. It makes me angry, because I know I can never even come close to like the brilliance of this album. Every moment of it.
Yeah, it's so good. The Calling All Cops is kind of my least favorite song, so I'm going to let you say everything that you need to say. Oh, it's same? Okay, yeah. So we'll punt it.
Well, you know, I made a couple notes, and I'll just like read them verbatim. Okay. I wrote another song that isn't my absolute favorite, but the song has so many unexpected moments, which, again, theme of the record, like, you never know what's going to come. You never expect it, and you're always glad that it happened. There's a faux bridge that's 90 seconds in when he sings, "When I'm awake, I make the same mistakes they make." And then like this really heavy guitar riff comes in, burning, and you're like, what the hell? And then like this second you're like figuring out what happened, they take it away. And you're like, oh shit, like, is that going to come back again? And it just like, it's interesting because like the up until that point, I'm like, okay, this song's like, it's fine. I'm not gonna skip it.
Yeah. I won't skip it, but it's not my favorite, in the fact that in an album where almost every song can, you know, like we said before, can literally be plopped into your life at a certain point.
Yes.
As a soundtracked moment. This one kind of misses the mark.
Yes, I agree. But I do think that really heavy riff, it always brings me back in. I'm never expecting it to happen. And then I'm like, okay, I can get through another verse.
Yeah.
But like, knowing that they added that little piece in there makes me want to hear it again. Like, I'm waiting for it to come back. And of course it does. And I'm so glad it does. Like, there's a lot of surprises throughout. In a song where I'm like, you know, I never really liked this one. Then you hear that riff, you're like, wait, maybe I love this one. I don't remember anymore. But yeah, it's not my favorite, but there are parts of it that I believe are really great as well.
Yeah. I agreed wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Then it gets to one that just really speaks wonders to me. Can't finish what you started.
Yeah. Because, can we talk about the drums?
I feel like, well, before we talk about the drums, I want to talk about just the entire outlook of the song, and how I think it kind of embodies our our generation, sort of.
Yeah, I think I know what line you're talking about. I love that. Yeah, super. I like that connection for sure.
All right, now tell us about the drums.
All right, Tony Thaxton, I believe is the name. So I started in music on drums, and I was just trying to like move on. No disrespect to Trey Cool, but I was moving on from just like the simplicity of Green Day music to like wanting to figure out like cooler drum licks. And then this album came along, and Tony Thaxton is just like such a sick drummer. Again, he gives you more than you bargain for, but it's never too much. And there's always some surprise in there in the way the song starts out. And there's like a hi-hat choke going along. There's so much movement in it. And it's surprisingly, again, like whether or not you're paying attention to the lyrics, you're bobbing your head, you're having a good time. Yeah. And I think, like you said, your interpretation of the song, it can be taken so many different ways. And that's what I really, really enjoy about it. It's not like, again, it's not a song that I like my soul like clings to, but I really like it. Like, I'll say that, you know.
I think that it just gets me in like my heart of hearts when it comes to procrastination, because that's like the line. I got it pulled up right here. Where did it go? I'm just waiting for my world to fall apart. That's why I'll never finish anything I start. Like, that is, you know, that self-destructive thing that I'm sure so many people like myself know.
Yeah.
Just that, you know, that fear of failure, fear of success. Like I've talked about that a bunch on my show.
Hell yeah, dude.
Because that's the biggest thing that I've always had, because every time I get like a little bit of like notoriety or like get to like milestone A or B or C, that's when I go, okay, it's all going to start falling apart. Yeah. I shouldn't keep going. I mean, this is probably the 5th iteration of this podcast. Because I'll do it and I'll go so hard for a little while, and then like it picks up steam, and then I get freaked out, and then I stop.
Yeah.
So,
dude, as like a content creator and like a business owner, that shit is so real, man. Like I'm trying to like reach this new echelon of my audio production career, and I've got this image of like the clients that I want to work with and the things that I want to do, the things I want to do with the podcast even. And it's like, I have these really ambitious dreams, but I'm always like, but what if it happened? Then I actually have to do it. You know, like I can't handle that.
There's a scene in the old 90s show, comedy Friends.
Sure.
Where Joey gets his first big role where he's the lead of a show. He's like, I'm a lead in my own action TV show. Why have I not been preparing for this?
Exactly.
I feel like that all the time.
Yeah, dude, totally. And you know, you mentioned like generationally, like, you know, politics aside or whatever, like think of like the climate crisis, and it's like, well, I can't do anything about this, so I guess I'll just fucking die. Like, I don't know. It's hard, or, you know, anything. I think
sure that's a Motion City soundtrack lyric from a song.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it, or at least it's a subtext.
It's
one of their lyrics.
Definitely a Postal Service lyric. Swim any day in November. Yeah, dude, I don't know about you. How old are you, by the way?
I am 32, going on 33 in a couple months.
Okay, I'm turning 31 in a couple months.
Okay, so yeah, roughly the same.
Yeah, close enough. And I don't know if it was the way I was treated by the nuns at school. I had a pretty bad manager not too long ago that constantly treated me like a child that could not and should not be trusted. I'm 30 years old.
Managers in regular business.
Dude, yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Like, they weren't these like super out of left field experiences like I'm alone in this, but like pretty normal stuff. But, you know, I'm 30 years old. I have a child. I like have a house. I mean, I don't own the house, but like we take care of a property and shit. Like, I am a proper adult, but I constantly feel like people see me as this like little 12-year-old that doesn't know how the world works, you know? Yeah. And it's something that like I have and am still going through great lengths to try to overcome with loads of therapy, which, you know, I had the thought, it was like a r/shower thoughts, like, you should be able to sue the people who caused you to spend so much on therapy. Like, I'd go after that manager so hard.
Yeah,
that $80 a month or $80 a week is killing me.
It adds up. It adds up pretty damn fast.
But it's crazy. Like, I always feel like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just a kid. Then I'm like, wait, I'm a fucking like adult plus, you know, like I'm not even just barely an adult or a young adult. I'm a full on like capital A adult, and I should feel like it. And like you were saying, just waiting for the world to fall apart. So I'm not even going to get started because there's like this sense of helplessness and hopelessness. Yeah. And I struggle with that daily, and it's exacerbated by being a business owner when like there's no accountability, there's no one to pat you on the back, you have no idea if you're doing anything right or wrong, you're just like totally fucking winging it. Like, I would never tell my clients that, but I have no idea what I'm doing, but I've been doing it for a long time without any help, so maybe it's okay, but I still feel like at any time I'm gonna wake up and they'll be like, no way, you couldn't have done that. Obviously, this was a dream. So yeah, that line, like, that hits. It resonates pretty hard for sure.
Yeah, and you know, you did a quick mention of the climate crisis. For those who want a very funny allegory to the climate crisis, go watch Don't Look Up on Netflix. It's a good watch.
I've been it's on my list for sure.
It is. Sure. It's so funny. It takes no prisoners. Nobody is safe from being. It's essentially like a South Park episode. Oh, nobody's safe. Nobody is safe. Everybody's gonna get made fun of. You got big tech getting made fun of. You got the Trump type. You got the Democrat types. Like everybody, nobody is spared anything. It's beautiful. I love equal opportunity roasting,
which is great because no one knows what they're doing. Like, why should anyone be safe? We're all just making it up on the fly, dude. It's nuts. It's nuts. But you know, to kind of like round off this song, I'm surprised I was able to talk about it as much as I could. But again, it's like we get a quiet chorus back into the intro, into the drums, and then we get another and it's just like, whoa, oh God. Like, speaking of no one's safe, like, your emotions are not safe in this album at any time. It's just up and down all around. But it always feels exactly how it should feel. It's just, I don't know, man. And have I mentioned this is a really good record?
I was gonna say, and after this, like this, even though it's like it's a upbeat but somber song.
Yeah.
Like, because it's somber. Like, you know, I'm never gonna finish anything I start. You go to the conversation, which is just a gut wrenching. Like, it honestly feels like you're listening to two people have their shit or get off the pot moment.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it sounds like. Like, you feel a little dirty listening to it because you're like, man, this is private shit.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I don't think I've ever like really thought of it that way, but totally. It's like, I should not be like eavesdropping on this conversation at the table next to me. It does. I mean, it's called The Conversation. Like, it does absolutely feel like something you should not be allowed to listen in on. It's very intimate. Yeah.
The line that like makes you feel like, where you just like, you feel dirty and you feel bad for listening is, I had a pocket full of dreams, but I gave them all to you. Now I want them back. You're like, oh man, I shouldn't have been listening to this conversation. My eyebrows just raised and they know I'm listening now.
Yeah, dude. And again, it's just like the I don't know, like the way he writes, the lyrics are so unapologetic, I guess you could say, and it feels like honesty for once. Like, it's not lyrics and thoughts that are stylized to be cool or be whatever. It's just like so from the heart, and I think that's why they're like the coolest lyrics I've ever heard, because they're not trying to be. It's just, I don't know, like, I want them back. Like, that's a tough thing to admit to yourself, let alone anyone who might be listening, whether or not they should be. It's intense. You know, I do want to ask, like, do you think that every album requires a slow song?
Yeah, I think that pacing is a super important part to any musical collection, whether it's even if it's like a best of album, like you got to have that contrast.
Gotcha. I'm not like super strong in my convictions, but I think I disagree. Like, 4 Year Strong, right?
Not extensively.
Okay. So we did an episode on the podcast of their debut album, Rise or Die Trying.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't slow down for a millisecond, dude. It starts at 11 and just is at a 12 by the time.
Well, let me say,
done.
all rules are made to be broken. So if that's a rule, then there's always exceptions to the rule. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna skip this song because it's beautiful. But I constantly feel like bands, and even my own band did this. So we've got to put an acoustic song in the middle. Like, why? I don't know. Like, I just find myself really excited for Broken Heart to start. Just like, okay, I can breathe. But like, so if I were a proper musician and I was going to put out an album, what I would do is put out 10 songs, no acoustics, just like full band all the time. Doesn't mean they necessarily all have to be fast and loud, but put out the album, and then like a month later, put out an acoustic EP where it's 4 songs from the album done acoustically, and then you add in the slow song. So it's like you're not like shortchanging people or the show on the experience of like a single spotlight. Let's bring it down and get the crowd to like sing. But I don't know, dude. I don't know if it's like my ADD or something where like rather than being all over the place, I get like hyper focused. So then when the pace drops out, I feel like a normal person would be like, okay, whew, like I can breathe. But I'm like, no, give me more. So I don't know. Again, I don't dislike it, but I'm just like stoked for Broken Heart to start.
Yeah, which, I mean, but before we move on, I do want to point out that actually probably would have worked really well for this album if they had kind of saved the conversation for their re-release when they re-released with a bunch of B-sides, as well as they did an iTunes acoustic EP as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, dude.
I did know that because I never mind. I did, but I think I've only like got them off LimeWire, so I didn't know it was like a proper collection.
Yeah, and I think that it would have really fit in there. And definitely go check out the EP. You got Fall in Love Without You, It Had to Be You, Broken Heart, Can't Finish What You Started, and Point of Execution.
Yeah,
all acoustic.
Broken Heart works surprisingly well acoustic.
Yeah. Speaking of Broken Heart, that's the next song up.
The best song they've ever written? Question mark.
Oh. I can't honestly just like tell you no right off the bat. Like I would have to like sit down and I'd have to bust out the yellow legal pad, do some pros and cons of every song, and then see where I am at the end. But I can't say that you're wrong. So you very well may be right.
I think it's the perfect song. I know that even Hannah, who introduced me to the record, like she preferred Commit This to Memory because it was like less of a polished thing. It wasn't so like, I don't even know what genre to call Motion City soundtrack. Really, I think they're in a league of their own, but
I'll tell you right now what they are. They're underrated. Like that's what they like. That is the only genre that could possibly encapsulate them because they were huge in the scene. Like they were very big in the scene, but they have every right to be like, the music is something that you could hear on like a top 40 radio station.
Yes.
And it would be the best song you'd hear on it constantly.
Totally. Like, I don't know if they were hurt by the fact that like maybe this album should have come out in 2003 and it would have been top 40 or something. I don't really know. Like I kind of forget what's happening on the radio in 2007 because I had an iPod and like didn't care about the radio anymore. But
I haven't listened to the radio since I want to say like 5th grade.
Yeah, sure, totally. I think Addicted might have been the last thing I heard on the radio because I was like, don't need that anymore. I got it all.
I got these Sherpas. Let's go.
But I don't know, dude. Like, so I'm such a sucker for like pop music. Like Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift is one of my favorite artists of all time. 1989 is my second favorite album of all time. Like Halsey, Dua Lipa.
Dude, I'm
I love
such
it
a Halsey
all.
freaking nerd.
Love
Her
it
newest
all.
album that was produced by was it Trent Reznor that did it? No, not Trent Reznor. Was it?
Is it? I think it might have been.
It was one of those 90s band guys. Was it Trent Halsey? I gotta look this up. Yeah, it was. It was
Yeah.
Trent Reznor. Trent Reznor, which when it comes to like movie scores and whatnot, he's phenomenal. Extremely talented artist. But that album, If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power, I think it is.
Yeah.
The themes that are explored throughout that album, just cut the lights, turn on that album, listen to it. If you do partake in the every now and then cannabis product, throw in an edible, tell me how you feel.
Yeah, it requires your full attention for sure.
Yeah.
But like, I just love pop. I love bubblegum pop, like any of that shit. So like when
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? Like that song "Stay" from Justin Bieber and the Australian kid. I listened to that song on repeat for like a week.
hell yeah, dude. One Direction with Makes You Beautiful or whatever. I'm like, hell yeah, you light up my life like nobody else. Like, love it. So like to me, a song like Broken Heart, it's obviously not unadulterated pop, but I feel like at the risk of the term formula feeling derogatory, there is a pop sensibility to it, I guess, that I think should have been top 40. Like, first of all, it's one of the coolest drum licks I've ever heard. So like I remember becoming obsessed with this drum part and wanting to learn it. And once I did, then I was like, oh, the guitar's like pretty sick too. So then I learned that, and it really kind of shines even brighter on the acoustic version, which I don't know, that's a really good album. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's something about taking the pop formula and then making it make sense in a Motion City song where it doesn't have quite the unexpected elements. Maybe it's not as like weird and out of left field like some of the other moments. Every part of it just makes sense, and the music is so fun, and the melody is fun, and the lyrics are soul crushing, and it's just that's what I love about.
You get that great rhyming throughout the song as well. Disguise, surprise.
Yeah.
We got what are some of the other? There's a lot of good like wordplay in this song specifically.
Yeah, dude, and even like it's amazing that what is it? The chorus. There's a really interesting rhyme scheme. So it's but I get carried away with every day and every fantasy. So the first line has the rhyme, the second line stands on its own, and then the deeper the wound, the harder I swoon and wish that was me. So it gives you this like rapid fire rhyme, and then the last line stands on its own. And like it's really easy for rhyme schemes to like become cheesy when every day I go out and play, and then I say, and it's like, okay, like it's too.
Well, but the very next line after that, they do that, but it still works because they go say. To convey,
they do convey
today.
They do, but it sounds good because they let it breathe in the first half. So if it was the whole chorus with just like that like machine gun rhyme structure where it's on the same beat every time, it's so cheesy. But like the fact that they left it a little like I don't want to say unbalanced. It's like it's off center, but it still feels balanced. And then they give you that nice even rhyme scheme. It kind of like balances it all out in a way that, again, like the unpredictability of every moment of this album with even the tempo at which the rhymes come at you is so fascinating to me.
And I said it
God.
before, like when we were kind of giving the overview of the album. I said this line, and I'll say it again. It's possibly one of my favorite lines of any song ever. I'll destroy this useless heart. I'll fuck it up so it'll never beat again. Not just for me, but for anyone.
Ah!
I love it. I love it. And the way that, like I said it earlier, like the words could so easily sound so whiny.
Yeah.
Like they could be like, good charlatted or simple planned out. No offense.
Yeah, or so cut my wrist and black my eyes. You know?
Yeah, like these words could have very easily fallen in, like could have been sung by somebody that was doing that, but you got, is it Justin Pierre? No,
Justin Courtney Pierre.
Courtney Pierre. There we go.
Yeah.
The way that he delivers is it. I don't like using the word perfect, but
but it is
has perfect delivery.
Yeah, no, all the time. Like I feel like it's rare to go a full album without being like, oh, that was just kind of carelessly thrown in there. Like they just had to complete the rhyme, and it almost just seems like they were just writing a song, where it never feels that way with him. Like everything feels so intentional but so carefree. It's perfect. Really, I mean, this is like a perfect album. Even though there's moments that I don't like, that aren't like God tier for me, there's always
what I think
something
is great about those songs that we both kind of agreed on, like with calling all cops,
yeah,
and the conversation is the reason that I kind of say like that having those songs is good is because it gives a moment to breathe.
Yeah,
it gives you that my heart was just like, and then you get a little bit of a break, and then you get to go again.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that. Like, I usually, kind of like I said, I enjoy it more on a micro level when, like, a chorus drops out for a minute or something, which there's an amazing way that they did this later on in the album, where they give you, like, a few seconds to kind of reflect. They're really good at leaving room to digest, because it's such a dense album.
And I think on the
lyrically.
macro and micro level, like you were saying.
Yeah, and again, if it were me, I don't know. I don't want the conversation to be gone. That's kind of the hard thing. I don't wish it wasn't there, but maybe it's just because when I listen to the album, it's because I want to listen to Broken Heart. But I listen to albums from the start, and I mean, it's got to be a really good album for me to want to listen to track 8 or whatever and start at 1 and just be like, it's coming, but I don't even care how long it takes because I'm loving what's happening in the meantime,
Yeah. And after Broken Heart, we have Hello Helicopter, which I said at the beginning. It's one of those songs where I've read the lyrics. I've listened to it upwards of probably 1,000 times. And I still to this day have no idea what it's about. But if the wind is blowing just the right way and I'm listening to it on a day that I just am a little more emotional than most, I will just start openly weeping.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just kind of reading through them now. And I think that, I talk about Taking Back Sunday a lot in the way that they write lyrics that are less of a story that you could read word by word, but it's like this mosaic made from like fractures of broken glass, where when you look at this stained glass window, like mosaic thing from 100 feet away, it's this beautiful, like, sense of motion that doesn't have like a defined shape, but it makes you feel something. I'm not really what I intended, but kind of like Tom Haverford in Parks and Rec when he's like, the shapes, man. I don't know what it is, the shapes. But like,
just look at him.
But when you zoom in real close, it's like, I don't know what he's saying, but I feel it.
Yeah, you feel, and I think I'm wondering as I'm looking at it now, and I haven't looked at the lyrics probably in 5 years, so maybe with my age I'm starting to see things, but I'm noticing It's, I believe, the second verse. Where he goes, "Hello, helicopter. Have you heard the news? No one gives a shit about the things they do. We all waste and consume, destroy and ruin everything we touch. It's easy not to think when you're not told that much." I think it's kind of it kind of is a callback to which song was it? It's a little bit of a callback to finish what you start. Can't finish what you started. In a sense that that's one of the reasons why you can't finish anything you start, because that's, this is kind of a precursor to that, possibly.
Yeah, destroy and ruin everything we touch. It's why even try, because it's not going to like work out in your favor anyway. I am curious why the term helicopter. I would love to have JCP here to just like spell it out. I mean, we could probably spend an hour trying to like figure it out, and honestly I kind of want to.
I'm legitimately going to clip this out, and I'm going to tag him and anybody that knows him on Twitter. Be like, please just enlighten me.
Yeah, no, I do agree though that it's like I haven't taken the time to figure it out, but like you don't need to understand this like micro context of what's happening, because you can just feel
it,
the energy, which is so hard to do. Like there's so many songs where it's like, yeah, I don't get it, but I like the beat or something. But like to not,
this one's definitely not. It's not like that. It's not like where it's like, right, I don't know what it means, but I get the beat. But like this one is, I don't know exactly what their intention was, but I
get it.
I feel something, and I think like that's kind of like the entire point of art in any aspect is to feel something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll use an example from 2017, I believe it was, when Kathy Griffin did the severed Trump head. Where's my hand? Right here. That elicited a response. Now, it wasn't the best response from a lot of people. For some people it was, but like that is, in the world of art, in my brain, she won. She elicited emotion.
Yeah.
And I look at this song and I say the same thing. I don't know what it was like I don't know what JCP. Sorry. I'll cut that part out when I tag him. But you feel, and like I said, maybe that's why it'll bring me to weeping openly.
And there's also just like the staccato-ness of the guitar part, the doom 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 doom. It's like it's got a nice bounce to it, but it's so like stop and go that I feel like it adds a lot of that tension as well. There's just not a wasted moment in this album. Everything makes so much sense all the time. It's infuriating.
And then you got right after that, you got Where I Belong, which man, this song to me is, I think, is about internal not arguments, what's the conflicts? Because when you get to it's chaos in the courthouse and the left side's all upset because the right side wants a summer home and knows we can't afford it. I feel like that's something I've had in my brain. Like, I really want that Hellcat, but I can't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another like lyrical gymnastics song that I try to mediate between this constant tug of war machine, but wind up in a never-ending game of telephone. It's just like, how is this happening? How is this still happening this deep into the album? So there's I love right afterwards. There's so much going on, and I just need 7 minutes to calm myself back down. I wonder why 7. And then this is me to a T. Now I forget where I was. Was it me we were talking about? Just like, I don't know what's going on, man. This verse is one of the standout moments in the album. And the chorus is really fun too, really simple. What's going on? Is this where I belong tonight? What's going on tonight?
Yeah.
And then we get this like weird like bridge chorus. I can't stand the thought of losing sentences in every island of words. And it's like this weird a little dissonant guitar riff, and it's like, oh man, like what's going on? And then it just mellows out again, and there's so much. They take you in so many places so quickly. It's hard to process it all in even like 10 goes. Like this is an album that like the first spin you might be like, oh, I enjoyed it, but I need so much more time with it to like really fully appreciate what's happening. I mean, it's been out for 15 years, dude. Can you believe that? 15 years? And there's still so much about this album that I'm learning today after just hundreds of spins.
Yeah.
There are a few things in the world that can hold my attention like that. And this album is just like, does it.
It really is good. And yeah, I mean, if you guys can't tell just by us talking about this album, it is one that you really need to experience for yourself. If you have even an inkling of liking any type of pop, emo, and these are commas. So pop, comma, emo, comma, pop punk, comma, like anything in that realm, even if you like just like kind of contemporary rock or like alternative rock in general, this album really should be listened to. And like Tom said, like it's one that after the first listen, you'll be like, you know what? I think I enjoyed that. I had a good time with it. You'll go back to it a month later and you'll listen to it again. And that's when the obsession starts.
Yeah. And if you can get your former high school girlfriend to introduce you to this record, it's going to be on a whole other level, dude.
Yeah, to all the kids out there, if you're dating a young boy, introduce this album to them and you'll wreck their life. And they are going to have to go to therapy for a while.
For like a while. Oh, boy. Yeah, there goes my kid's college fund. I'm in therapy.
It's all about trade schools these days.
Dude, totally. Yeah. What's next on this? What's after this?
Where I Belong leads to Point of Execution, which is one of those songs that just reading the name never... Okay, yeah, it's the one that opens up Are You Listening, Javelina, which is a little weird because I actually was charged by a pack of javelinas in high school.
Wait, what's that?
Javelina is it's like a wild pig.
Oh,
they run rampant out in southeastern Arizona.
Wow, nuts.
So I think that's why I gravitated to this song. I was like, javelinas. I don't want them listening to me.
Dan, that's wild.
Arizona's another world.
Wow. Okay, so if you listen to my podcast at all, like almost every episode I'm mentioning how like I'm not a lyrics guy. Like I don't like being a musician, being at this point formerly, I guess, a music producer. The one thing that doesn't matter is what they're saying, like to an audio engineer. So like, I'm listening to like the tonality of a lot of things, like all the layers, the interplay of all these different parts. So it's never like been my thing to focus heavily on lyrics. On all of my standardized testing through school, my reading comprehension has always been like my lowest grade. So like if I'm reading poetry, like fuck if I know what it means. So like I usually struggle to like read between a lot of the lines on this stuff, which I think this band doesn't make you do too much of that. But I've never like just sat down and read lyrics in my life, and I'm like reading the lyrics of Point of Extinction for the first time ever, and just like, this is nuts.
Burning bridges is a form of suicide.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, no, I really like this, man. I love, All Dressed Up with Some Medicine for Luck. And I just, you know what he's saying? Like, you can read between the lines there, I guess, and just, like, not probably overfilled with confidence, but gonna do it anyway. Like, I think there's a lot of those themes, again, of I may not have it all in me to, like, do this, but maybe I'll try, maybe I won't. And I do like that it's like a little back and forth where sometimes it's hopeless, but other times he's really going for it. And it's like, again, nothing is ever in one place for too long. Yeah. And you really see that through the themes and the lyrics as well. And whether or not that was very intentional, I have to imagine it was. It's really fun to just think of the album as like a whole, as a chronological story, and try to get inside his mind of what's going on, because he pretty much leaves it all out on the table for you to interpret and be a part of.
And this song, I think, has probably my favorite bridges in any of it. That this is the best that it'll get, and get it up.
Yeah, dude.
Like it's just one of those songs where like I think that I almost did what you guys do on the show. I almost called Motion City Soundtrack My Chemical Romance. Damn you two! You two every time cursed me. But Motion City Soundtrack is really good at conveying that.
Yeah, dude. There's a line in here. Made one wish for a permanent kiss that would echo through these bones like arsenic. Yeah, who does this,
who writes that? Like, how do you, Justin, how do you get these lyrics? Please come on and talk about it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we've been trying to get him on our show for a while.
Hey, he's a busy man, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, this is such a fun song. Again, really interesting bridge that like allows you to feel something a little bit different for a minute. And the chorus is really fun. There's like a lot of weird octaves and stuff that I feel like is a callback to the opening few seconds of this album, where it's like a little bit all over the place, but like just on the edge of containment. Like you feel like at any second it could just break free into chaos, but it's always like right up to that line. And again, there's moments of the song that are some of my favorites on the album. The song itself is not one of my favorites. It's still like an A tier song.
Yeah.
But there's so much going on, and it feels, again, like everything in this album feels so perfectly cohesive. Like I don't know how they got away with doing so many different things while keeping it all contained to a degree. And this song is a good like example of how it moves through these different like movements in the song, and somehow ends up feeling all right when it's just all over the place. Yeah. It's nuts.
And it leads into my one of my favorite songs of all time. I brought it up when we started talking about it. Antonia. Yeah. It is it's one of the most beautiful love songs that I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And it's one that this is one that I know the reason that it brings tears to my eyes, but like it can be a Tuesday and I'll throw this one on and it'll just start coming and be like, all right, I just gotta feel this for a little bit. And it is a love letter about this woman. Mm-hmm. And like it's all the weird things. Like it's she makes a lot of abstract art. Nobody loves abstract art. Nobody loves it, but she does it, and he loves her.
Yeah.
She haggles for the cheapest price. She never orders takeout food before 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. She tells really the dumbest knock jokes. Yeah. Like, again, it's like, it would be a safer bet to be like, oh, legs that go down to the floor, just like dumb stuff that like, I think there was a lot of controversy over the writing style of Twilight, where like I think she made the female character as vague as possible so that any reader can see themselves in it. Mm-hmm. Which, whether or not you love that is probably a good move, because it like any person listening that has a partner could insert whatever traits they want, but the fact that he makes it so specific,
specific.
My wife doesn't want to, like, she orders takeout food as early as possible. You know what I mean? So like,
she wants to be in bed before 8:30.
Especially now that we got a kid, it's like 4:00. Like, let's shut it down, dude. But like somehow the hyper specifics make it so much more approachable.
Yeah.
And whether or not you see yourself or your partner in that situation, the greater meaning, like you said, it's all the little things that really add up. It's not, the superficial beauty and the waves of her golden hair or whatever the fuck some, douchey love letter writing guy might be inclined to write. It's like the weird shit, man. It's, again, stays up like shopping for Ginzu knives on Home Shopping
she
Network.
doesn't shop for them. She shaves her legs with them.
Oh, no, dude, that's right. Yeah, man. Why not? Like, maybe she could buy a razor, but they've got this knife laying around and it's endearing. Like, it's nuts, dude. When I think of Motion City, I think of this song. I think of the other one, This Is For Real, right?
Yeah.
No, it had to be you.
Oh, okay.
Just really overly descriptive.
Yeah.
But not for the sake of like showboating, because again, this girl's doing some weird stuff, man. Like, but it's just the best. She's the pizza of his eye, which is also one of my favorite lines in any song ever. Fucking apple, dude. Give me a slice of pizza. It's great. I mean, one of my. Maybe we can get to the. I don't want to rush forwards to the end, but like. The part that chokes me up, brings tears in my eye. Yeah, this song does it for me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, real fast, I want to talk like the part where they talk about getting married. Because she was the bride, I was the groom. I cried a lot, and then we spooned.
Without her in my life, I would be doomed. Like
the word flow, the idea of like. The spoon, like just saying, and then we spooned.
Yeah,
it's just so funny to me, and it really is one of those songs where like, it's one of those songs where my wife probably doesn't know it, but this is a song that like every time I hear it, I think about her, because I think about all of her little idiosyncratic things that are just so weird that I love, and then just how it gets cold when she's not around. Like that's the chorus, the opening chorus line. It's cold when she's not around.
Yeah.
I can't wait for her to come home.
Yeah, man. It's I forgot what I was gonna say. I just got swept up in that line now. Was I float until I sink and get swallowed up or something? Like, and even just like the flow of that is so. It's something else. I do think it's one of the greatest love songs of all time. And it's, again, it's just, I think it's so great because it focuses, I mean, my favorite song of all time is All the Small Things. And like, this is, pretty reminiscent
all
of that.
The small things. Like,
literally.
That's hilarious. And then it really caps off at the end, which I'm not a breeder, but I don't judge those that are. But I still get like the emotional responses to people, making other people and whatnot. Yeah. And that last line of our little baby girls do this, man. When the little lady grows up, I hope that she will be just like her mother.
Yeah.
Perfect way to end a song.
Yeah, and it like drops out for a minute. Dude, that line gives me chills, dude. Like, I have a child. He's 9.5 months. He like just stood up on his own for the first time yesterday. And if you asked me 10 months ago, do you give a shit about children? Hell no. Like, I never. I had a hard time like reckoning with the fact that I was a father and that I had a child until he was like 2 months old. Like, being a new father is super hard. Like, I really wish more people talked about that going into it.
Should be a daddy podcast.
I mean, Pat has a kid now too, so like we make jokes about like, oh no, we're a dad podcast now. But I mean, when I fell in love with my kid, it happened like really quick and like really, I couldn't fathom how much you could love something or someone. And I do feel like there's so many things about myself that I wouldn't say that I hate, but it's easy to like look at this kid and be like, I hope he doesn't get these traits about me, the things that I'm like going to therapy to work on to not pass on like generational trauma.
Yeah.
And there's so much about my wife that it's like, I want him to be just like her in these ways. Just like as a benefit to society as a whole. Like, it's even before I ever wanted kids, because I never really wanted kids. This line just wrecked me because, like, yeah, I watch Gilmore Girls on like just repeat over and over. It's like one of my favorite shows of all time. And like there's always this like will they won't they of Lorelai and Luke. And every time they have these moments, I'm just like, they just love each other so much, you know, and like they won't admit it. And when I listen to this song, it's just like he loves her so much. Like it's nuts, dude. And like I've had these feelings. I have these feelings, and it's so intense to love that person so much. You want those traits to stay with a new person, with a new generation, to carry those things on. It means so much to you that you don't even want to hold them just for yourself. Like you want them to be passed on for other people to experience. It feels to me like this very selfless love that I think is just so beautiful. And again, way before I ever cared about kids, this line meant so much to me. Yeah. And I think it's the highlight, the pinnacle of the entire record, lyrically and in terms of like just raw emotion. It chokes me up every single time. Like no matter what mood I'm in, it's just like you got to like stop and take a breath. Yeah. It's so heartfelt and so intense. And I don't think I've ever heard songwriting like this before, ever. Yeah. It's on a whole different level.
It's one of those songs where I grew more appreciation for it, just like with It Had to Be You. When I did, get married and I started going through the good parts, the hard parts, the parts, all the parts of a marriage. And, you do get to see that, things can be the same but different. Yeah. And, when you do have that one person that the person that it had to be, it really changes the way you listen to this. Because I think I listened to this album now, and even though I loved it back in 2007, I love it even more now. And, because of things like meeting my wife and actually remembering it, and having this life that we've built together, to where we went from being in poverty-stricken town in Arizona to poverty-stricken Denver, but we're in this house where we got our 2 dogs, we got this whole life, and it the point of music is to feel things. And like I said throughout this whole thing, we've been going through the feels on all different levels. And art, when it's done right, it makes you appreciate things outside of itself. And that's one of the things that has really propped this album up. So, in 2007, it might've been like a top 25 album, but now that I am, at the point where I am with my life, with my wife, it really shoots it up higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can definitely appreciate it on a whole other level. And it's like, I mean, life is not easy for most people. Even a good marriage is not easy, but like the sum is greater than its parts, know? And like, after you've been through the shit, it's even more special. And it's like, there's no way you couldn't have gotten through it without that person, or you could have, but it wouldn't have meant nearly as much to do it alone. And I really feel like this song, again, man, like you could have just easily said like shit like that, like, I don't know, just like over general statements, but it allows you to come to that conclusion on your own through the idiosyncratic like way that he gushes over his wife. It's really special, dude. Like I you mentioned on the conversation, like, I feel so privileged to like even be able to listen in on these words. Like, it's so intimate that I can't believe he let us listen to it.
Yeah, that's funny. I never really drew that comparison before, but you're right. Like, it is like the things that you would tell your significant other. You would think that you would keep that private, but and I'm not saying that I'm mad that he didn't, because like I said, it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah.
I think it's seriously just one of the it's the most beautiful love song, and it's the most beautiful love song in such a weird way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Because it's not like and we slow dance. Like, it's not that. It's all the little weird things.
Yeah.
And it goes into the hard parts too. Like, she passed out on the kitchen floor when her father passed away, which hits me as well. Like, my wife's father has passed, and that happened before me, but still, it's one of those things where, like, it's one of those things that just resonates.
Yeah.
And I if I could recommend one song on this album, even though I do agree that what song did you say was the best song
Broken
ever?
Heart.
Broken Heart is probably the best song ever. If I had to recommend just one song to people, it would be Antonia, because of the emotion that it really harnesses, and it's, for the lack of a better word, it's just beautiful.
Like, I think it's the most Motion City soundtrack song. Like, it defines the band in 3.5 minutes or whatever.
With it, just the total nonsense lines that add up to a whole somehow. Like, it's the literal sum of the parts is way more.
Yeah, for sure.
Or I guess the whole is way more than the sum of the parts. It's the opposite of the normal. But then it leads into the album closer, which is the title track, Even If It Kills Me. And I mean, it has multiple callbacks throughout the song. I mean, it opens up with "I'm so sick of making lists of things I'll never finish." There's so much good, and it's such a, like, it feels like a farewell. Like, it feels like a farewell. And so I don't know if Fell in Love Without You is the best opener of all time. I do love it. I do love it as an opener. I don't know if it's the best opener of all time, but I think that this is very easily one of the best closers of all time.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes so much sense. It's in the perfect slot. I really love, I talk about the Wonder Years a lot. And the album Suburbia, I've Given You All and Now I'm Nothing. It's outside of the decade, so we actually don't talk about that album on the show. But, like, that is my North Star for, like, how you end a record. There's all these different callbacks to melodies and lyrics. But, like, that one is very, like, on the nose. It's like a medley of sorts, where this has all these callbacks that are kind of disguised. And it stands on its own, even if you didn't listen to the whole album, as a very cohesive thing, which the entire record is. I love the build into the chorus, and they do a trick that is so hard to pull off, and when it's done well, it's just like, it deserves so much respect, where you hear, like, the pop formula is like, shut up and get to the chorus, like, give them what they're looking for. By 30 seconds, you should be at the chorus. It should be full force, whatever. They get to the chorus, not too quickly, but when they do, they only give you like a taste, like a preview of what the chorus actually is. They give you 4 lines, and then they make you wait for more. And it's so easy to feel like a little bit shortchanged by how brief the chorus is. But again, it's like, wait, is there more of that? Like, you're not really quite sure what's going on. And, like, the thing that I keep thinking about this album is, like, the phrase approachable but never expected. Like, you can never anticipate a single moment of what's going to happen. They always kind of keep you wanting more. And you mentioned Time to Breathe and how I said I enjoy it more on like a micro level.
Yeah.
This song gives so much time to breathe. Like something that I really enjoy listening to, like Green Day, thinking of the something off of Dookie. It's escaping me now. They just have like instrumental parts where it's not a solo, it's not a breakdown, it's not a gang vocal whoa type thing. It's just some power chords, and they're not really trying to like take you on this huge journey, but they're like allowing you to enjoy where you just came from, which like the song's pretty intense, but like they give you these moments to like sit back and like, okay, I'm vibing this. I kind of like, it's a pretty standard chord progression, so I can like think about what just happened, but also knowing this band and what they've done in the previous 10, 11, 12 songs, I can prepare for what the fuck is probably going to happen. And the answer is like a whole lot is going to happen in this song. Like,
yeah,
it's nuts, dude. They don't get to a full chorus, I think, until 3 minutes in.
Yeah, they get the full chorus after the third verse.
Like, that is so against the rules, but it makes for one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life.
I never thought about it the way that you said it, but like those first 2 times that you hear the chorus, you do feel like you're shortchanged. You're like waiting for more, but then they give it to you on the third round.
Yeah,
like
great. You know, I Where You Want to Be by Taking Back Sunday is one of my favorite albums, and they do this thing in the back half of the album where they make you wait for the back half of the song. And it's not to say that the front half of the song is bad, but it's not what the end is. It's like a pretty distinct part A and part B. And I like it, but I feel like what Motion City does is they can break that like much more granular and give you these moments of anticipation and huge payoff, but they can pepper in these moments that give you I don't want to say like enough to get by, because it's a god tier song every second, but like they give you these little bits that lets you know like we are going somewhere. Just hold on. It's not like just wait and suffer through it or anything, but like, and neither is Taking Back Sunday, but they reward you so heavily, but they also are giving you everything you could ever ask for in the meantime. Like, it's insane. Like they over deliver at every second. It's just, when that full chorus comes in and you're like ready for it to like crash out, then they just like extend it and you're like, oh shit, like this is everything they took away from the beginning. They give you all at once, and it's like all this like tension builds up, and then they let it out in his vocal melody. Like, it's so not even, I don't know, it has like this weird tone of like triumph with the way the melody has like this like rolling peaks through it, and it's like it all like you're feeling real good, and then like they never let you stay anywhere for too long. The last line is like, I so want to get back on track, and I'll do whatever it takes, crash out even if it kills me. And then it just like fades for like 15 seconds, and you're just like like, let's do it again. Like, it ends exactly opposite of the way it began, and it's
perfect. That is a perfect way to say it, because you're 100% right, because it goes from the orchestral tuning to a hard stop even if it kills me, and then and
then just lets it be. Like, they don't need to like do more. Like, they have given you everything, you know. Like they know that they don't need to deliver on anything else. They have over delivered, and they're just gonna let it fade out on the fucking name of the album. Like, how
I feel the way they end it is kind of the dance that happens in a negotiation, to where you're going back and forth, and then you hit a certain point where the first person to talk loses. In every negotiation, there is that point where there's a point where something is said, and the next thing to be said, whoever said it, is the loser of the negotiation. And this is, to me, this is them making that statement, and they're not going to say the next thing. It's going to be you,
right?
And you're going to lose
because
like,
they know they're sitting on a flush, dude.
They got not just a flush. That's a royal flush.
Yeah, I love that. It's just, it ends with so much confidence, and it's not undeservedly so. Like they earned every bit of praise we're giving it right now, and honestly, probably so much more. I mean, this is not the first time I've talked about this song in this album, and I feel like I could do another one of these episodes right now. I would never get tired of just absolutely gushing over it. It's just, it deserves anything it could get. It's incredible.
And that's the album. And I honestly did not intend to go line for line through that album, but I'm so glad that we did.
Yeah.
I've probably listened to it 10 times this week. I'm going to go ahead and throw it on for number 11 as soon as
why not, dude?
I had a lot more that I wanted to get to, so we're going to have to do this again. But one thing that I want to ask you before I let you go, so I've already taken up so much of your time. This is way too much time. But I want to talk about something like total gear change.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. I got a little baby Groot and
nice
and Rocket up there. You can't really see it, but a huge Guardians of the Galaxy fan. And I love what that franchise, when it comes to the comics, the movies, and the game even that recently came out. I love what they were able to do with this new revitalization of old school music. And I wanted to position it to you. Do you think that in 50 years, there's going to be a piece of media like the Guardians of the Galaxy that can like breathe like new life into like our childhood music?
So I'm totally unfamiliar with Guardians of the Galaxy or like anything even like remotely superhero related, like DC, Marvel. I just have no... I've never had the Sherpas. Again, dude, like I so heavily rely on everyone to like spoon feed me everything. I've never watched a Star Wars movie. I've never seen Star Trek just because I never had friends that were into it. So,
then I'm going to give you some homework.
Okay.
You don't need to watch all the Marvel movies.
Okay.
But you should watch the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and just pay attention to the way that they use music in them. It's exceptional. But it has shown, like, if you look at the Google Trends and you look at like Spotify trends and different things like that, it has led to like this huge resurgence of the music of the 70s and like a little bit of the early 80s.
Okay.
Which is what I find fascinating, that a totally separate piece, like medium can come through and revitalize a time period of music. And,
okay, so that's actually really interesting because I love the show Stranger Things, and it kind of did that for the 80s, right? Like there's been...
That's what kicked off the 80s nostalgia that was all the rage for a while, yeah.
I mean, I still, like, if I'm not listening to pop punk, I'm listening to chill wave, vapor wave, synth wave.
I thought you were going to say Tears for Fears.
No. But I never existed in the 80s. I was born in 91. I despise music that came from the 80s, but there has been this... I think of the album Nella Vita by Grayscale, and even Umbra that just came out 6 months ago, maybe. They have a lot of these 80s inspired themes and sounds, like mainly synth driven stuff that I really feel, and Pat and I have talked about this a lot too, like the 80s were so experimental, and they had instruments that they were experimenting with that were not refined enough at the time to like get the full use of them. 50 years later, I think, or 40 years later, maybe we're kind of there. But I think Stranger Things kicked off this whole era of like 80s revitalization type stuff.
Yeah.
Pat mentions, actually, so today at the time of recording, we just put out an episode where we drafted the 20 songs we want to hear played at When We Were Young Festival, which is totally a cash cow of early 2000s emo nostalgia.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
So like, there's already some stuff going that way, but like, you know, Pat says a lot, like the fact that Pen 15 exists is proof that like we are now cashing in on the nostalgia of the 90s. And there's even a podcast by Rolling Stone. It's called like the Sounds of the 90s or something. So like people are now that the 80s have had their moment, we're moving on to the 90s, which like some of the 80s bled into the 90s, thinking of like my favorite song growing up was I Saw the Sign by Ace of Base when I was like 6. Dude, that song fucking rips, dude. Sweden had some shit going on.
What that song makes me think of every time I hear it?
Huh.
It was on a commercial back in the day, and it was a commercial for Texaco gas stations. So every time I hear that song, I think of a Texaco gas station.
That's so awesome. I love those weird associations, man. I think of like being in my uncle's driveway in my mom's white Buick, like just listening to the radio and like you hear your favorite song by chance. You never know when it's gonna happen. But so the 90s are having their moment, and like there was a Fresh Prince reunion not that long ago.
Yep.
Pat is constantly saying that he thinks, and we didn't like strategize the content of our show. Like we talk about SEO, but like, I don't know, like we're not really like doing keyword research or anything, but like we feel that we are pretty uniquely positioned to be talking about early 2000s because right now everyone's talking about the 90s.
Yeah.
In 5 years, they're going to have early 2000s nostalgia, and we're already going to have a back catalog of 500 episodes. Like, that doesn't mean that we're the best or it's going to mean anything, but like everyone's talking about the 90s right now. We're talking about the early 2000s. So
10 years, you guys are going to be...
I mean, maybe, but
it's
like...
going to be rolling.
I do think that, and yeah, I mean, we have these dreams of being like reminiscent media of like, honestly, we want to write a TV show called The Emo Show, and it's just stories of our lives of, I've been straight edge my entire life, and when I was 17, this guy came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're straight edge? Yeah, me too. But like, I overcame a drug addiction, so like my straight edge is like almost worth more than your straight edge." Just like...
How do you overcome a drug addiction at 17?
Dude, eerie. Not much else to do. I'll tell you that. But so like we want to cash in on like the early 2000s shit. Like we want to be the first to it while everyone's distracted with the 90s. Let's get ahead and like make a show about a TV show about like early 2000s emo and pop punk. And like we had a writer of Comedy Central follow us on Twitter, and we were like, is this our chance? Like, how do we harass the shit out of them without being overwhelming? I do think that there's going to be some type of, hopefully not a soulless like cash grab at early 2000s nostalgia, but I don't think we're too far away from it, and if possible I would like to be that. Like that's kind of what we would love for, you know, the multimedia conglomerate that will become, or that Reminiscent will become. I don't know, like why not?
Yeah. I got some people that I want to put on your radar to get you to talk to some people. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
Because I think that would be actually pretty dope. But that's it. Like I had a lot more that I wanted to talk about. We'll just have to do it again. I want to dig into you know, going from religious to not being religious, your distaste for the Beatles. I wanted
How original, right?
I wanted to ask if ellipses has made its way into your text messages as much as it has in mine, because ellipses. Isn't that the ...
Yeah, dude.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, no, I always put it in the wrong place, but I do it a lot.
I have a joke that like the ellipses has gone from being in pop punk song titles to my text messages.
Hell yeah, dude. I love a good ellipses.
But thanks again, Tom, so much. Go ahead and tell everybody where to follow you, where to listen to the show. Get all the plugs out.
Yeah, man, our podcast website is at reminiscentpodcast.com, and we have everything there. So like all of our back catalog you can find there. When we have the time, we do blog posts about the way King for a Day by Pierce the Veil has ruined Pat's life, and we do playlists all the time. So like our Song of the Week segment, we turn into playlists on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube, and we have all of that in our website as well. But to me, the heart of the show actually exists on Twitter. So like somehow the podcast itself has become a sideshow.
Sideshow to the Twitter.
Right. So like, I mean, we formed like this really great community that came up really naturally and organically. And it's so special to me that people care enough to like listen to the show and then hop on Twitter and be like, oh, here's my experience with that song and here's how it relates and here's how it's different. And like, there's all these people I've never met that I feel so intensely close to. Yeah. So like, if you don't want to listen to the show, that's fine. Like, we've got this whole thing going on Twitter, this whole like unofficial, I guess it's official at the point. We call them the Reminiscenties. They named themselves, I believe. We also got the Reminisces and the Reminephews and the Reminecties and the Reminectarines, and someone suggested Reminecrophiliacs, but we didn't go with that one. But like, yeah, so on Twitter at _reminiscentfm, if you want to talk about early 2000s emo and pop punk, we don't like have rules on Twitter, so if it's like in 2012, like we'll talk to you about it. But so yeah, the reminiscentpodcast.com, and then on Twitter you can also find the link in there. We're at _reminiscentfm, and
I'll have links to that in the show notes as well as the description on YouTube for everybody. And that's what I want to say is these guys are extremely active on Twitter. That's actually how I came to know about you guys. Is awesome. A comedian had posted, Blake Hammond had made a very funny like pop punk, like it was a bit about how pop punk song lyrics were a little bit weird because they were all written by 30-plus-year-old dudes.
Yeah.
To teenagers, and it was really funny. And I had said something, and then you guys had liked my comment, and so I was like, "Reminiscent, what's all this about?" And so I started listening, and I was like, "Oh my god, these guys are fucking great." And we didn't even talk about our 5 most memorable shows. We're definitely gonna have to do another episode.
Yeah.
But I thank you so much for your time. Like I said, links will be down in the description or in the show notes wherever you're listening and/or watching. And thanks so much, Tom.
Dude, thank you. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate
it. All right, we'll catch you guys next time. Adios.
Right. See ya.